Good evening and welcome to the 7 o'clock English news from the Sultanate of Oman Television. First, the headlines. As by royal order, the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Water Resources participates in the Food System Summit activities at the General Assembly at the United Nations in New York. A number of agreements are signed to finance and establish some CSR projects in the Governorate of North Al-Batna. And with the Sultan's participation, the annual consultative meeting between the GCC countries and the Russian Federation confirms the importance of developing and enhancing relations. Those are the headlines, and now the news in detail. By the royal directive of His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq, His Excellency Dr. Saud bin Hamoud Al-Habsi, Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Water Resources, participated in the 2021 UN Food System Summit, which will take place during UN General Assembly in New York. On his speech before the summit, His Excellency, the Minister, referred to the direct impact of food system and the safety and quality of living for human beings and on their social, cultural and economic practices, in addition to the impact of COVID-19 on the fragile global production systems, which necessitate taking action to enhance food system and protect its security to avoid the interruption of food supply chains. His Excellency added that the Sultanate adopts methods to enhance agricultural and food systems and improve production lines to raise quality of living for the Omani community. At the end of his speech, His Excellency Dr. Saud bin Hamoud Al-Habsi, Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Water Resources, reaffirmed the Sultan's commitments to the UN Sustainable Development Goals and to take necessary action to support 2030 Sustainable Development Plan and to raise the level of public discussion on reforming of food systems. Jusor Enterprises signed 4 agreements to implement social projects in the Governorate of North Al-Batna as part of a social investment program funded by OQ, Sohar Aluminium, Valley and other establishments from the public and private sectors. The 4 projects include a rehabilitation and a physical therapy center in Shinas Polyclinic, a mobile breast cancer screening unit, a citrus greenhouse project, and an educational digital studio. The Sultanate participated in the annual consultative meeting between the GCC countries for the Arab states and the Russian Federation on the sidelines of the annual meetings of the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York. The meeting discussed a number of issues of common interest and emphasized the importance of developing and strengthening cooperation relations between the Gulf Cooperation Council and the Federal Republic of Russia to serve common interests and increase coordination and cooperation to enhance security and stability in the region. The Sultanate was represented by His Excellency Dr. Mohammed bin Awad Al Hassan, the Sultanate's permanent representative to the United Nations in New York. The Sultanate of Oman, represented by the Omani Journalists Association, will host the 31st Congress for the International Federation of the Journalists, which will take place in May 2022. A team from the Omani Journalists Association submitted its proposal to host the event during the IFJ Executive Office's online meetings. The Sultanate won 18 votes out of 21, making it the second Arab country and the first East Asian country to host this event. 300 participants from 148 countries representing 600,000 members, journalists around the world, are expected to attend the 5-day event. The upcoming meeting will include the nomination of the new executive office for the next 3 years and the selection of its members, in addition to the nomination of the deputies for the chairman, the secretary general, and the treasurer. U.S. State Department officials said the United States will maintain sanctions pressure on the Taliban to ensure the humanitarian needs of the Afghani people met and hold them accountable for commitments they've made. State Department spokesman Ned Price told reporters yesterday that even as they maintain pressure on the Taliban and continue to hold them to account for the commitments they've made, both publicly and privately, they will not relent in their efforts to provide needed humanitarian support to the people of Afghanistan. Price said the Treasury Department has issued necessary licenses to support the continued flow of needed humanitarian assistance for the people of Afghanistan. A panel of high-level speakers said that the United Nations yesterday that aid to Afghanistan should be made conditional to ensure the protection of women's rights and access to education under the rule of the Taliban government. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian said today that when his government says it will return soon to talks on resuming compliance with the 2015 nuclear deal, it means when Tehran has completed its review of the nuclear file. Yesterday, Amir Abdollahian told reporters in New York that Iran would return to talks very soon. He said to them, soon means really in the first opportune time when the reviews of the nuclear file have been completed. What is important is their determination to return to the talks, but those that are serious and guarantee the Iranian nation's rights and interests. Talks that began in April between Iran and the 5 other nations, Britain, China, France, Germany, and Russia, to revive the 2015 deal have been stalled since hardline cleric Ibrahim Raisi was elected president in June. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called yesterday for the world to redouble its renewable energy efforts to avert a climate emergency and address global energy poverty. They said today we'll face a moment of truth, who described the mandate as a double imperative to end energy poverty and to limit climate change, and added they have an answer that will fulfill both imperatives: affordable, renewable, and sustainable energy for all. The comments came as governments and private sector pledged to spend more than $400 billion at a high-level summit that called for an acceleration of efforts to avert catastrophic climate change and simultaneously bring electricity to more than 760 million people around the world who currently lack it. Guterres noted there's been some progress, with renewable energy now comprising 29% of global electricity generation. The COVID-19 immunization of adolescents over 12 years of age began in Rio de Janeiro yesterday. The city's vaccination program has successfully inoculated 82% of its residents with at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine. Infection and mortality rates have declined substantially as the vaccination rate has increased, with weekly average of 1,163 confirmed cases and weekly mortality rate of 3.4%. Brazil has registered 593,018 deaths from COVID-19 since the outbreak hit the country last year. Rio City health officials have begun a gradual reopening program due to the lower numbers and increasing vaccination rates. Tourist venues, cafes, and restaurants are now open for business, but some protocols like masking and proof of vaccination are mandatory. Clouds of thick black ash from volcanic eruptions in Spain's Canary archipelago forced the closure of the airport on La Palma Island today. The Cambodia volcano came to life a week ago and has intermittently spewed out lava and ash, leading to the cancellation of all 7 flights yesterday. More evacuations are also ordered at the town of El Paso, as large explosions and new openings were reported at the volcano. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez announced La Palma would be declared a zone affected by a catastrophe, which opens financial aid to residents. The speed of the lava flowing from the crater has steadily slowed in recent days, and experts hope it will not reach the coast. If the molten lava pours into the sea, it can generate clouds of toxic gas into the air, also affecting the marine environment. The eruption on La Palma, home to 85,000 people, was the first in 50 years. To come, a news bulletin. The South African government deploys a train to take vaccine doses to remote areas. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman Television. The Board of Directors of the Public Authority for Special Economic Zone and Free Zones met with a number of CEOs of factories established in Salalah Free Zone. The members of the Board of Directors of the authority, chaired by His Excellency Dr. Ali bin Masood Al-Sanadi, Chairman of the Board, visited a number of factories at Salalah Free Zone that specialize in the field of food security, or food industry, chemicals and pharmaceutical factories. Also, the Board of Directors of the authority held its third meeting this year. Meeting analyzed the current situation of the investment in Salalah Free Zone and confirmed the general orientation to localize projects for the production of medicines and medical supplies in the zone. As the board specified areas for these industries, where one of the largest pharmaceutical factories is in the Sultanate there, currently being established. Ministry of Labour continues to offer job opportunities to job seekers moving from one governorate to another. This time, the ministry moved to the governorate of North Al-Sharqiyya to hold job examinations for 244 job seekers who completed for 23 job vacancies in the Ministry of Education and the Council of Administrative Affairs for the Judiciary. To ensure impartiality of fair treatment to all candidates, results announcements were made immediately after the examinations. The offered jobs were assigned to the job seekers who have earned the highest scores. Frustrated drivers in London were caught in gridlock traffic today as vehicles continue to queue for fuel across the capital. BP and Esso warned they had to ration supplies and close some gas stations in Britain this week because there were not enough truckers to get gas to the pumps. The British government is expected to ease visa rules for truck drivers to help fix supply chain problems that have triggered long lines at gas stations and some shuttered pumps. The government said it was looking at temporary measures to avoid any immediate problems. The haulage industry said the UK is short of tens of thousands of truckers due to a perfect storm of factors, including the coronavirus pandemic, an aging workforce, and an exodus of foreign workers following Britain's departure from the European Union. Trucking companies have been urging the government to ease immigration rules so drivers can more easily be recruited from across Europe. A COVID-19 vaccine train in South Africa is providing a way of reaching out into the communities and persuading people to protect themselves and those around them from the virus. Vaccine hesitancy, together with access to facilities in remote areas, are some of the major stumbling blocks to the vaccine rollout program in the country. Many people do not trust that vaccines are safe, and through information spread through social media, are not willing to take the shots. Doctor and train manager Dr. Pabalo Mokwana explains that the train mandate is to vaccinate as many people as possible, which making its way through various towns in South Africa. So there's still a long road ahead and would encourage as many people as possible to get vaccinated. This is the Sultan of Oman Television. Before tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. As per royal orders, the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Water Resources participates in the Food System Summit on the sideline of the activities of General Assembly of the United Nations in New York. A number of agreements are signed to finance and establish some CSR projects in the government of North Alberta. And with the Sultan's participation, the annual consultative meeting between the GCC countries and the Russian Federation confirms the importance of developing and enhancing relations. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin from all of us here in the newsroom and the studios. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Good night.